tomorrow night. So tonight's topic is on something that I think most of us who are parents of gifted kids worry about, think about, and a lot. So Dr. Peters and I have been colleagues for, gosh, I don't know, about 10 or 15 years, I think, and have collaborated a lot and worked with our group. And one of his area is on social emotional needs, twice exceptional students. And he's a psychologist out of California with a center called the Summit Center, and does a tremendous amount of work nationally as well as throughout California. So, Dr. Peters. Oh, one last thing I forgot to say. We have to close out, we have to be out of here in an hour at 7:15. So he'll speak till shortly after 7 and then ask some questions. But if you have personal questions about your own kids that you want to follow up on, you're free to email me, call my office, and I can direct you to some of Dan's resources as well. And this is being live streamed to Facebook, so we do not want to ask any personal questions throughout the presentation, but after following, when we turned it off, you can ask a few. Enjoy.
Thanks, Dina. Thanks for having me tonight. This is a very important topic. There we go. This is a very important topic for all of you sitting out here. I know I am a parent, usually sitting down there. I have a 16-year-old, a 18-year-old, and an almost 20-year-old. And so I see myself as being in the trenches with you all, and also get to be on the other side every day in my seat, trying to support parents and parents of gifted kids and gifted kids themselves. And we know that gifted kids and gifted people have normal aspects of themselves, neurotypical aspects of themselves, have all of the developmental hurdles, and also we know that there are some also exceptionalities and some lenses by which we should be viewing our gifted kids, so we know what they might be going through and how to help support them through life. And life seems to be getting very challenging these days with lots of external forces and pressures, everywhere from technology to different factors that are going on in the universe. And so this is a time for us all to try to be as thoughtful as possible with how we go about this important job called parenting. And I think what's fascinating about parenting is it didn't even show up in the literature as a thing, as a verb, until like the 1970s. So somehow adults and parents got through this whole thing for centuries without us having this other job called parenting, which has become the most important job that most of us feel we have, along with all of our other jobs and daily activities. So let's get going on how to raise successful kids and focus on what matters. That's what this is really about, focusing on what matters. And the first thing that matters is the clicker working. Okay. Maybe it's just the on button. That always helps. Look at that. Okay, we're going to start with a parenting quiz. Take a look at the screen. Can you all see? Okay, so the quiz for the audience at home. Pick an answer that describes how you feel as a parent. Stressed? Overwhelmed? Worried about your child now? Worried about your child in the future? Or all the above? Right? Okay. Did you ever think it was going to be like this when you started out? No, but this is real. This is real. We tend to be overwhelmed. We tend to be stressed, and we have worries. And we have worries for our kids, who they are now, and who they're going to become, because we really, really care. And all this means is that parenting is not for sissies. And now we're in it, so we have to be resilient, and we have to do the hard stuff and do the important stuff. So I'm going to start with some reality here. And this reality is to ground us with, again, to focus on what matters. We have too many kids and teenagers who are stressed out, who are anxious, who are depressed, who do start to abuse alcohol and drugs, who start to harm themselves because they're told that's the way to feel better. And then unfortunately, there are always the too many that do something permanent. I just started reading that new book, The New Adolescence. It's a great book, and there's statistics in there which are just alarming to normalize. This isn't just a phase we've been seeing with the rise of adolescent stress and anxiety and lack of well-being. It's something we all have to be aware of when we're focusing on what is important. And what is important is mental health. That's what's important, not what college you go to. Mental health is what is important. So the science is telling us many consistent messages that we need to pay attention to. One is, as parents, teaching is much better than controlling, even though it's so much easier if we can control everything they did and said. That kids cannot learn when they're angry or scared. And this is traditional parenting. This is what brain-based parenting is teaching us. Great books by Dr. Dan Siegel and Dr. Tina Bryson and a number of others, is that traditional parenting involves generally us looming over, getting in someone's face, raising our voice, pointing at them, and threatening them with consequences. For those of us older people, we remember some of that parenting, maybe done to us. What that does is it activates our limbic system, our emotional brain, and particularly our amygdala, our fight and flight response. So we go into a fight or flight or shutdown. It turns off the frontal lobe, which is actually the part of our brain that learns. So discipline actually means to teach, and somewhere along the line, it became interpreted as to punish. And with punishment, which sometimes is necessary, it's not the primary mode of teaching. So when our kids are angry or scared, they cannot learn from us. We cannot teach unless we are calm. How hard is that? In our daily grind, getting out the door, whether you have 1 kid or 5 kids, getting out the door is tough. Getting through all the activities and homework, getting to bed, and by the way, you having a semblance of a life as well that you bring into the situation. It's hard, and when we react, we can't be helpful. We show frustration, and again, we're all human, it's all natural, but we just have to know when it comes to teaching, we're not going to be able to teach unless we are calm. Our kids learn from watching what we do. When we are yelling at other drivers, when we are talking in frustration about other people, regardless of what we're doing, how we're living our lives, they watch us. Now, of course, that's good news because we can model things, and also it's tough news because we're human too, and we have our lower moments too. But this is all about being human and showing our kids what humanness is like and us being mindful. Love and connection is the foundation to raising healthy kids. Everyone here has that covered, right? So it's foundational. So here's what I've observed over the years. My beard used to be brown, now it's gray, also from my own parenting, I imagine. We all want what's best for our kids. We all want what's best for our kids. Here is this catch. The college admission scandals. I was reading some of the follow-up articles that came out in the last month, interviewing parents who spent lots of money breaking some laws. They all wanted what was best for their kids. When you broke it down, they were afraid their kid was not going to have the chance that they thought they deserved. They're afraid their kids would be heartbroken if they didn't get into whatever elite school. And get this, some of the kids that were interviewed were devastated that their parents didn't believe in them. Many of these kids, they were not slackers. These kids were 4-point plus students, athletes. Like, they were doing everything on their own, working really hard. And the message from their parents wanting to do what's best for them was, you don't believe in me, you don't think I can do it. What if I wasn't, does that mean I'm not good enough if I didn't get into those schools? So again, when we have this, we want best for our kids, we have to be very careful and aware that that is not enough. We need to be mindful about what that means for what we want for our kids and how we're going about it. Also, a fact, we don't want our kids to have the same negative experiences that we might have had at home, in school, on teams, in plays, coaches, teachers. And so, because we have that, we have to be very aware of what we're doing to mitigate that or not mitigate that, because that impacts their belief in themselves and their experiences. And most of us only grow when we've had difficult experiences. So we are in this world of parenting where we, the collective we, we're trying to recover from decades of now really trying to protect kids from pain and suffering. Now, of course, we want to for the extreme pain and suffering and safety, which we'll talk about. But when it comes to not getting on teams, not getting trophies, not getting it the first time, not getting what you want, we're trying to prevent our kids from that disappointment. And what we're doing is we're robbing them inadvertently with good intentions of life experiences that they need to have to inoculate them for their future. We want our kids to be happy and successful. Nothing wrong with that. We'll talk more about that. And our own childhood always informs our parenting. Always. You may say, no, it doesn't. I don't do anything like my parents did. That's because your parents did what they did. Or, you know what? I take some of it that I like and I change the stuff I did like. Cool. That's mindful, intentional parenting. But that means your childhood is informing your parenting. And the other thing is that our beliefs about parenting always inform our parenting behavior, which we're going to talk about. And it might be subconscious, it might be unconscious, it might be conscious. The goal is for it to become conscious so we can consciously parent our kids based on beliefs that we're aware of, not that are just swimming around there unconsciously. So I like this quote, I like to share it. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of being. So when we think about our kids and the messages we give them, are we treating them who we want them to become? Or are we giving them messages that they're just not ready? I just feel better if you didn't do that. And what we don't realize is a lot of time we are managing our own anxiety. And I'm not saying it's illegitimate anxiety about the things we're worried about, but we are managing our anxiety by a lot of the decisions we're making about what they can do, what they can't do, when they can do it, what they're ready for. We're afraid they might fail, but they want to take a chance. So these are all things for us to be aware of and mindful of. So the question, what do you want for your children as we think about the important factors to focus on? What do we want for our kids? And what's important to you, actually, it makes a difference. Grades might be important to you. Taking risks might be important to you. Being part of the community might be important to you. Being independent. Coping with adversity. Engaged in school and life. Like, these are all things that I believe most of us think about, but not in very conscious ways all the time. It's swimming around back there. Like, we see this vision of what we want our kids to become, but our parenting behavior should be based on what our goals are for our kids. And we do this all the time in business. We do this all the time in business. We think about, okay, what are my goals? What are my metrics? How am I going to achieve those goals? What teams, resources do I need to put in place for that outcome? I need to reassess along the way if I'm meeting my budget, if I'm meeting my project, if I'm meeting my outcomes. And then I need to change what I'm doing if something is not meeting this objective. And in parenting, our most important job, we're like, all right, I'm ready, let's do this. And it's hard to think about it the same way, but we can. We can think about it in the same way and then back out. If we want our kids to be independent, we need to do this. If we want our kids to be resilient, we need to do this. And it might not be as easy in the short run for what we want in the long term. Tiene un plan. So my high school Spanish teacher was wonderful, and she was always mentoring us in life, even though she was our Spanish teacher. And we'd walk in, and if she saw us do or heard we did something silly or goofy, she'd sit down, and might sit down next to me and say, Dan, tiene un plan. What is your plan? And she was talking about life. So I brought that with me wherever I go to talk about what is our plan. Tiene un plan. We need a plan. And this is where this whole notion of parent footprint comes in. So I want you to think of this visual of parent footprint. We are all leaving footprints on our kids, whether we like it or not. Positive, neutral, sometimes negative, right? Because your parents think it up easy, either, right? We need to choose the footprint we are going to leave for our kids, which will also play out with our potential grandkids. It just keeps rolling down, right? So think about this image of a footprint and being intentional and mindful of what footprint we want to leave, which is based on what our plan is, to the degree that we can plan for life. So we talked a little bit about love. So love is foundational. Showing your kid love, unconditional love, is essential. However, it is not enough, right? You know, too many people say, but I love you, I'm doing it because I love you. That's not always enough for a child. Parents who abuse their kids love their kids. Now, parents who abuse their kids will usually abuse themselves, so I'm passing no judgment. I'm saying love is not enough. We need to be intentional about the behavior and how we are engaging with our kids, which is beyond love. It's about intention and mindful parenting. Sometimes we love someone so much and we have to specifically not prevent them from the pain that they are experiencing because it's real life and it's out of our control. We should let life happen, even though we love them so much. So awareness is key to all this. People who are more aware of who they are and what they're about have more healthy, happy, and meaningful lives. That's what the research shows. So if we can be aware of ourselves, first, we benefit, but secondarily, our kids benefit. And many of us have a hard time setting aside time to work on ourselves when we're last, or focus on ourselves because our kids are first. Here is the reason, the excuse if needed, to focus on yourself, because it will have a positive impact on your child. 150%. Being aware of what you care about, what's important to you, how you are in your relationships, what you are putting up with versus not putting up with, how you're living your life, where you want to improve. That all impacts our kids in positive ways. Ask them those questions. And even at times, sharing the answers to those questions with your kids, depending on their age and the situation, to let them know that You know what? I've been yelling too much. I grew up in a yelling family, and I never liked it, and I said I would never yell, and I realized even though I try not to, I'm yelling more than I want because I've been pretty stressed out with what's going on at work or what's going on in the world. And I'm really going to work on it, so I just want to let you know. That's one of the healthiest things we can do with our kids. You know what, this morning, I want to apologize. I was frustrated about something that had nothing to do with you, and then when you were late, and it seemed to me that you didn't really care about getting out the door on time, I lost it on you. And it started way before you. These little things, so we do not have to be perfect. We are not perfect. We do not want to model perfection. We want to model being human, and that we're growing, and that we matter. So kids can learn that they matter too when they become adults, and the whole world isn't about making sure everything's okay for them. I don't know what age it was, but when did it stop being everyone was working on making sure that you were okay? It's like someday there's a memo and it's like, all right, you're done, you're on your own. So awareness is key. And then all of this stuff comes into it. Our own fears, our own worries, our emotion, our energy, the energy we bring in the door. Now, gifted kids are sensitive, are perceptive, and are often very aware, sometimes more aware of you than of themselves. They know when something's up. They sometimes know before you know that something is up. Right? Something's happened, you're like, okay, I gotta put that aside. I'm just gonna walk in. I'm just gonna deal with my family situation right now. And you walk in, you're like, all right, guys, Dad, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. What's wrong? I remember, I tell this story because it stuck with me. I was going through a difficult time when I think our oldest was maybe she must have been about 4, then we had the 2-year-old, and I can't remember if the youngest one was in the car seat, but I was driving. I think it was just the older two. I was taking them to preschool. And I was going through a really tough time. Crisis with work, wasn't sleeping, anxious, then starting to feel depressed. I was not myself. I was not used to feeling that way. I remember being at this light by our house, and I was looking in the rearview mirror, and I remember feeling just like flat. And all of a sudden I hear, Dad, what's wrong? 4-year-old. Nothing. Why is your face like that? And I look at the mirror and I saw my flat face, and I realized, it's over. Nothing can be hidden anymore. And it was the motivation of, I gotta figure some stuff out because this is not just about me anymore. It's impacting my little child already. By me, my energy being low, me not being satisfied with what I was doing, and me being in my own personal crisis. And what I always say, that is the biggest motivation for us taking care of ourselves so we can be that model for our kids. And when we are dealing with depression, and we're dealing with anxiety, and we're dealing with anger, and we're dealing with fear, it's okay. It's human. Most of us do not get out of this gig alive without experiencing one or many of those things. And the chances that our kids will experience one or some of those things is very high. It doesn't mean a lifetime of it, but it means an experience of it. So we can't run from these things. We have to embrace them because they're often messages to us about something that we need to do differently in our own life to be more fulfilled, to be more effective people and parents, so we can have a more fulfilling life. So now we're getting to what we need to focus on with our kids. So what do we know? Life will have inevitable struggles. Period. There will be adversity. There will be stress. This is life. So how come we keep trying to prevent our kids from experiencing aspects of life that they're going to hit and need to be prepared for? Right? Because we have to inoculate them to be able to deal with it when we are not around. Whether it's the playground, when which they go off to school or go live on their own. It's going to happen. So isn't our job on the way to helping them become happy, successful people, teaching them and providing opportunities for them to learn how to be resilient and learn how to bounce back? And these are hard to watch as parents. Story of my younger brother, excuse me, where my mom did one of these most heroic things, which was not normally in her nature. She's a very nurturing person. And so she was always there and always wanted to be the best mom ever, and was a great mom, is a great mom. So my brother, he was in middle school, I was in high school, and he was having some social challenges. It was the school carnival, the high school carnival. I was part of leadership, I was part of putting the whole thing on, I was in my element, life had been good at that point. I think I might have been a junior maybe at the time, so kind of got through those early years of high school and was finding my own footing. And he, unbeknownst to me, gets dropped off in the big high school parking lot to meet his 4 friends that he was meeting there. And as my mom pulled away, she sees in the space that he does school that he does not go to, this big place, the 4 of them ditch him. And he's left alone in the parking lot at this giant carnival with all of these older high school people. And I don't know how she didn't do what I would think that I might do. She kept driving because she knew at that point it would be worse for her to come back and try to save him at that age or that situation. So I don't know this is going on. He comes up to me and he says, "Can you take me home?" Being the empathic brother that I was, I said, "Are you kidding me? It just started." No. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, "Come on, go have some fun. We'll leave it whenever we're going to leave, 11 o'clock or whenever it's over." So I'm glad I didn't know that was going on. I'm not sure what I would have done in that situation had I known, being more in my own world at that point as well. But in that time, he ended up making his new friends, which to this day are his best friends. When the natural situation these days, I think, would be for us to pick our kid up or come to their rescue. But with that opportunity and with that pain and with that, what am I going to do? He found his people. So it's tough. It's tough to give our kids these lessons or to allow them to happen, but this is where we have to be mindful. Instead of the knee-jerk, we're going to come hover, we're going to protect, we need to ask ourselves the question, what should I do here? What is the goal? Because you might decide the goal is, you know what? He or she really needs this terrible, but this is an opportunity to see how she can figure this out. It's only for 2 hours. She knows other people there. Let's see what happens. These are just things to consider. And I'm not saying there are right or wrong answers. It's that we just have to be thoughtful about them instead of our knee-jerk reaction. So the focus on what matters, I contend, is coping, resilience, and problem solving. Coping, resilience, and problem solving. When I talk to gifted kids, what I tell them is the research shows firmly that smart people are not more successful. Gifted kids are not more successful than neurotypical kids. People who know themselves, people who have coping skills, people who persevere in the face of adversity, those are successful people. If you happen to be smart and gifted as well, that is a magic combination. Because that is an asset. But what happens is a lot of times we inadvertently are raising these kids, which we'll talk about shortly, with this more fixed-oriented mindset, where they think, because we've told them that being smart is enough. And we need to have these life skills to persevere, to cope. And this should be, I think, part of our plan. So resilience, the ability to bounce back, the ability to rise above, seeing challenges as opportunities. That is the resilient mindset. So we know that they seek solutions and they gain confidence when they're resilient because they're able to push through something, which just builds more confidence for the next time. Sort of like, bring it on. There have been definitely times in my life where I didn't have that attitude, and sometimes you just want to roll over in fetal position and you feel you just got leveled. And there are other times when you solve a problem and it just makes you feel like, wow, let's do this. What else? When people at the center come to me, they say, Dan, we got a problem. I say this part in jest, but also part serious. I said, I don't want problems, I want solutions. Okay, we got a problem. There's this, there's this. Okay, I want a problem. What's the solution? And you know what? There's always a solution. There's always a solution. The solution might be you're leaving college and you're going to have a 5-year plan that you didn't imagine. Or you're going to be going to 2 schools when you thought there was 1 school. Or you're going to regroup and go to community college, which wasn't in your plan. No one cares. At the end of the day, no one cares. Here's the other thing. No one cares what school you went to. People care, are you good at what you do and are you a good human being? That's all people care about. Right? It's not about camaraderie with people who went to the same school as you, but in the big picture, it doesn't matter. What matters is, can we persevere when stuff gets hard? And do we know what matters to us and what we care about? So, this is the list of what we see when resiliency reaches its limits. And this is back to our first slide, when people are too stressed, too anxious, too depressed, or self-medicating. It's because this stuff starts to happen. We have smart people, we have high achievers, we have people who really want to do well, good people, and all of a sudden, headaches, stomach aches, tired, sad mood, worry, irritability. As kids get older, moving more towards substances, and then in worse situations, start to self-harm for relief. Good, bright, sensitive people, because they are overwhelmed by their external demands. Their external demands exceed their internal resources to deal with the demands. That's when resiliency's reached its limits. And it's no fault, it's no personal limitation. It sometimes is, there is too much going on. There's just too much you're involved in. 5 AP classes, 2 sports, debate, and theater might be too much. And what if you could remove some of those external things? Well, we all know what would happen. You'd never get into a good college. I say that only partly in jest, because that's the Kool-Aid. That's the Kool-Aid. There are over 5,000 colleges and universities in the United States. There are places dying to get wonderful students. There are places with realistic acceptance rates, great cultures, and what we know is it's all about the fit. Research out of Stanford, Challenge Success. There's a great position paper. If you look on their website, Challenge Success, and it's all the research shows it's all about your fit. The fit with the university, not for future success and happiness. So this is when resiliency reaches its limits, and this is where we need the help, right? First of all, we have to build resiliency skills in the first place. But secondly, we need to focus on when resiliency is reaching its limits, we need to focus on health and well-being, not GPAs and achievement. And this is where perfectionism comes in. I always tell people I am a perfectionist in recovery. And for those of you who can relate to that, once a perfectionist, you always know it's with you. It creeps up on you. But when we have perfectionistic thinking and we have this fear of failure, this fear of not being good enough, it's never enough. People start to feel very badly about themselves for what they do or what they don't do. They're often less creative, afraid to be outside the box with our thinking, afraid to take risks, afraid to get feedback because everything's supposed to be perfect the first time. And so you're living in fear, and instead of trying to strive for excellence, which is the notion of failing along the way to be your best version, to do your best act, your best thing, we're fearing failure. And it often comes with the gifted package, is perfectionistic thinking. And even if you have this absent-minded professor, you're like, there's no way this person is a perfectionist. Have you seen his room and his backpack and his homework? But wait until he focuses on what's important to him. It can creep out there. Not sleeping because programming all night, doing art all night, not being satisfied. So just know it lurks and it's real, and many of us adults carry these same things, and not that we have environmentally necessarily passed them on to our kids, which is possible, but just from a personality perspective, a lot of our kids come into the world this way from early ages. And we have to help them understand themselves. So here's the 7 C's of resilience, and this is from Dr. Kenneth Ginsburg, who is a resiliency expert, pediatrician on the East Coast. And he has a wonderful book about resilience and a wonderful program for resilience. He's all about resilience. So I want to briefly go through the 7 C's. So, and these are in order. So Dr. Ginsburg's research shows you build one and then the next one may follow. So competence is teaching the kids that they can do something. They're competent. They can feed themselves. They can tie their own shoes. They can dress themselves. And we don't tell them to put something on that matches because they think they look good, like Pippi Longstocking. Okay, so competence, helping our kids with competence is they feel they can do something in their life and do it well. And after they become competent, then it instills confidence. Right? I can do something, and now I have a belief in myself that I can do other things. This is resilience. I can do something, and I can do other things too. Connection. Then they need to feel they are connected to their family, to their community, and there's huge positive outcomes for kids who are connected to their schools. Kids who are connected to their school communities really have a built-in resiliency, built-in that they matter. So after they are competent, they're confident, they're connected, then they can build character. And building character is, what do I stand for? What am I about? In the same difficult time that I was telling you about, I remember driving in the rain, because the rainy day was fitting my mood, and I was at a stoplight, and I was staring at the car in front of me in my zoning off, and I saw a bumper sticker that said, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. I remember looking at it and going, oh my God, I don't even know what I stand for anymore. Right? I was just in this place and I don't even know what I stand for anymore. And what happened was it made me think long and hard over that next week. Like, I know who I am. I know what I'm about. I know what I stand for. And slowly I started to remember, I stand for people. I stand for my family. I stand for honesty. I stand for truth. And I found my way back to myself. So character is really important for our kids to know what they're about. And of course that comes from your family character, your family values, what they're instilling, what you're instilling in them. Then there's contribution. Contribution means I can contribute. I can make a difference. I can help in my school. I can help in my community. I can help in my family. Because when we contribute, we know that if we're contributing to others, others can contribute to us. Because something that happens for kids that are challenged with resiliency, a lot of times, especially perfectionists, they close up. They're not asking for help. They're basically saying, I'm supposed to be doing it all on my own, and I can't, so there's something wrong with me. And telling anyone about it is shameful and a failure. But if we can contribute, we can then accept. And then we can cope. We can learn to cope. Because if we have all of these other foundational values and skills, now I can cope with what's going on with me. I can handle it. I can go to my family, I can go to my school, I can go to others, I can go back to what I believe in. And finally, that gives me a sense of control, that I have some control over what happens to me. I'm not just a victim. I have choices. I remember a supervisor earlier on in my career, and he would say to me, the only job you can really enjoy is the one you know you can leave. And he said that to me in the midst of this time because he saw that I was not happy in my current situation, and he was a wise older man who was trying to tell me, you have a choice. You have a choice. And so to have resilience, we need to know we have choices. We can leave a situation. We can talk to someone about it. We can consult. We can leave school. We can get another job. We can go on a different team. I'm not talking about quitting. I'm talking about being in a situation that's not healthy for us. We can be resilient and problem solve our way out of it. And we can teach our kids when we're doing the same thing in our own lives and narrate it in ways that's age appropriate for them and doesn't increase their own anxiety about life. Having a tough time with this thing. I've tried this and I've tried this and it still isn't working. I'm trying to figure out what I should do next. With some of our older kids, hey, do you guys have any ideas? What would you do in my situation? Now we're modeling asking for help. Because a lot of us parents who look like we have our stuff together, our kids only see us at this age that we are, having gone through everything and don't know the road or the path. So if we look all perfect and we got our stuff together, that's what we're modeling in expectations for our kids. That's how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to succeed, you're never supposed to fail, you're not supposed to have problems. And that's not how it works, obviously. The 4 S's, so we go from the 7 C's to the 4 S's. So the 4 S's is from a new book by Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson called The Power of Showing Up. The Power of Showing Up. Their book, they're the brain parenting experts, and they have found that the way you show up impacts our child's neurodevelopment. And the 4 S's are, we need to keep our kids safe, keep them soothed, have them be seen, and then they will develop to have a secure attachment with themselves and others. So safety can be not touching a stove, not walking off a ledge when they're young. In adolescence, it can be, no, you're not staying out until 2 in the morning, you're not going to a concert with just your friends, right? No, we need to know the names of the kids you're with and the parents who are you're going to be around if they're even home. So safety takes its form, different form at different times of life. Being soothed is when they're upset. That's why we have to be calm, because that is not the time to discipline, to teach when their amygdala, their limbic brain is going off. We need to help them soothe and calm when they're not able to do so on themselves. We call it co-regulating. We need to regulate ourselves so we can help them regulate and then co-regulate together so they feel safe and calm down. And then they need to be seen for who they are, that they matter. Their differences, what they're into, even if you're not into it, right? How many of our gifted kids become very passionate about certain things that you may or may not find the same passion and interest in? And talking about it 12 hours a day feels like just this much too much. I remember when I was having the battles with my son, who's our middle, on the first-person shooter games, right? All his friends back then were doing the first-person shooter games, and I'm in this field, and I'm reading all the research, and I'm thinking, like, this is not all that healthy at a young age. Well, I'm getting battled back, and to the point that finally my wife's like, I'm sick of you guys debating at the dinner table about this, because we're just debating. He's making his points, I'm making my points. Finally, somehow he got from a family member, all of a sudden we have an older version of this game in our house, and he's playing first-person shooter games. And I'm so frustrated. And then finally I realized, you know what? Why don't you do what you suggest your clients to do and join and learn about it, see why he's so into it. So I did, and instead of being frustrated and us having conflict, got to wince through some of those games, learn about it, actually learn about the strategy, see how hard it was. I couldn't even like walk and hold something in the game. And that it takes a lot of skill to play this game and what they do with their friends and what the strategy is. And it was so much more than I thought it was. Same thing with binge watching a TV show. We can sit out there and say, when are you going to get off? How many shows are you going to watch? Or we can actually say, hey, do you mind if I watch with you? It must be a really good show. Have to find ways for our kids to be seen for who they are. And then they get this secure attachment, which leads to resiliency. They're secure in who they are, they're secure with who they are in the world, and they're secure that they have abilities that they can change things. They have some control, they can cope. So, we know that to build resilience, our kids need this unconditional love from at least one person. That's what the research has shown for years. One person. The other thing they need is reasonable expectations. This also comes into play when we're thinking of our gifted youth, who have often tremendous ability and talent and potential. What is our expectation? Well, we know from Vygotsky's zones of proximal development is that people who set a bar too low, which is too often our gifted kids who are languishing in regular ed classrooms and not getting any challenge, they don't grow. They get rewarded for showing up and breathing. That's not good for them. Conversely, if we're pushing too hard, or they're pushing too hard, and the bar is set too high, there's learned helplessness and giving up, fetal. We want to have the bar just a little above where they are so they can grow. They can push themselves. It's not about whether they're 1 year ahead, 2 years ahead, 4 years ahead. It's are they being challenged so they're growing? And they don't have to be challenged several years ahead in every single category, because we know with many of our twice exceptional kids, our gifted kids who have some very high abilities but also some abilities that are less developed, they might be strong in 1 or 2 or 3 things, or because of their executive functioning challenges, they might not be able to keep up with all 5 things that they would be if they had maybe stronger executive functioning. And then it's a disservice to them to put them in a situation that they might fail because they don't have the resources. Right? So we got to set this bar just above them and individualize it. They need adversity. They need to have adversity. They're going to have adversity whether it's at the job or in college. Promise. Here's another really interesting fact. Nationally, 1 out of 3 college freshmen do not return to their same university their sophomore year. 1 out of 3. That has changed since we were all going through the same situation. And it's a variety of reasons, right? There is depression, there's anxiety, there's perfectionism, there's the internet, there's overcommitting, there's substance abuse. 1 out of 3. Of course, there are some schools that have higher retention rates. But it just shows that kids are dealing with a lot these days. The other thing it shows is there's lots of options these days. There's a lot of people who go off and try it and say, you know what, this place is not for me. I want to come home or I want to transfer. And there's options. And something that was devastating ends up becoming the best thing that ever happened to them because of what they've learned and the changes they've made. So the other thing they need is resourceful parents, resilient parents. Our kids, for us to focus on what matters, is need us to be resilient in the face of our adversity. Be human, but be very aware you are teaching while you are living. And finally, they need skills. They need some of these resiliency skills. So, one skill is the whole idea of, this is Dr. Ginsburg, a real tiger versus a paper tiger. They need to know that we have still very old evolutionary mammalian brains that are built to react to saber-toothed tigers so we will not get eaten, or our tribe or our family will not get eaten. And so So our amygdala, our fight and flight response, goes off when we are in a dangerous situation. However, you live in a beautiful community with beautiful schools, and fortunately there are not saber-tooth tigers or other metaphorical similar things most of the time. But we have kids where they are reacting in fear and stress and anxiety, when actually it might be a paper tiger. It looks like something scary, like that math test or that placement test, but it's not the end of the world. And we have to help them, first of all, be able to accurately perceive these situations and really believe what we're telling them to perceive. You know what? Whether you get an A or B, it doesn't matter. You can't fake that one. They know. It doesn't matter, and I'll be really disappointed in you, right? They can read it on our face if we don't even say it. We have to help them understand what is a paper tiger, what is not worth our amygdala going off. How can we look at this in another way and turn down that fight and flight response? Turn down the adrenaline and ask, is this too big of a reaction for the situation? And will this thing, this is hard for teenagers because everything matters in that moment. I even remember that. But having to help them think about, this really doesn't, is this really going to matter in a month? Are you really going to remember whether you went to this thing? We need to help them with perspective because they're not going to have that perspective because they haven't lived as long as us. But I promise you, it's going to be real and intense. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone's going to that thing. Everyone's invited. It feels that way. Everyone's on that team. And this is where we get to grit. Angela Lee Duckworth's great TED Talk. For those of you who haven't seen it 3 years ago, like 7 minutes, it's amazing. And it's really motivating, and it's the whole thing what I talked about earlier. The research shows it wasn't these smart, gifted kids who were the most successful. It was the people who tried the hardest. Those could also be gifted people. But it's all about the effort. And again, I'm not downplaying intelligence or giftedness, but I'm saying we have to be really purposeful about what we tell our kids matters so they can have the lives they want and what we want for them. And it's that grit, it's that perseverance, it's that hard work, it's that not giving up. Gifted kids have a tendency to have low frustration tolerance, which makes sense because for many of them, everything came easy at a high level for a majority of their life until it doesn't. For some people, it's medical school is the first time they hit a wall. I have clients who they said, the first time I had to study was in medical school. I have other clients who say, I didn't even have to study in medical school. The first time it got hard was on my rotations. Some people, is that a blessing? Sometimes, but it's also a curse because you don't have the opportunity to learn what it's like to have to actually study, to persevere, to dig deep. That's what we need for life, and that's the opportunities we need to give our kids if our goal is to raise resiliency and problem solving. So obviously grit and resilience, just another term, grit for resilience. Now, forest and trees. I feel like this is a really important concept that I try to remember in my daily life as much as possible with my kids over the years. We often are living with the trees, not the forest. The forest is the big picture. The forest is that thing that you are focused on that you want for your kids. Whether you want them to be independent, to learn resilience, to learn communication skills, to learn hard work. The trees are what we end up falling into. It's the weeds. Get out of bed, get to the table. Okay, do your homework. Did you grab your cleats? Did you do your chores? It's the weeds. It's real life, but often we lose sight of what our goal is. So if we have a child who is so frustrated with their homework, either it's boring, it's repetitive, or it's too long, are we going to keep getting into battles with them? Or are we going to decide how are we going to deal with this? One way of dealing with it from a forest perspective is, hey, let's try this. The goal is not actually to get this thing done. I want to see if you can go with 5 minutes without getting upset. I don't care if you get it right. I want to see if you can tolerate these boring or hard or easy questions without falling apart. Because guess what? There's parts of our work that's pretty boring. What are we going to do? Roll around on the floor? So think about what is the goal. That's the forest. Okay, bedtime. The usual disaster around some bedtimes. One more story. Can I read more? I still have to finish programming. I'm going to lose everything I've done if I don't complete this mission. Whatever it is. You have a choice. The tree. Get off now. I've told you 5 times. It's already a half hour past your bedtime. That might be real. Another one might be, okay, actually I want to have tonight be a good night and not another one where we're yelling at each other and go to bed frustrated. And that one you might choose to let some time go and come to some conclusion that you say, okay, can we be off here? And then you cuddle, you read, whatever it is, and you go to bed. That's a choice. This is all about choosing what you want the outcome to be. It doesn't mean you're a pushover. But what it means is you are not just reacting the same way. What I can promise you every time our kids have all these bedtime stories and rituals and nighttime worries, every time, and my wife and I began with 3 kids, tag team like we just need some time together on the couch, and then so one other story. Every time we try to circumvent the ritual, we just bought ourselves a total train wreck. Right? When it's just, God, just finish the ritual and have a good night, and then we'll all be happier and tired. But we'll be like that. It was a choice. We realized ultimately it was a choice. So again, I know we can be tired. We need to choose. We need to choose. I'm suggesting the forest often, but be purposeful about when you're picking the trees. And then we get to the mindset, which I alluded to earlier. Gifted kids are unintentionally often raised with more of a fixed point mindset because early on they start doing things really well at a high level and everyone loves it. And you know what? They're just showing up. They can't help it. They don't know the difference. Math is just easy. Reading is easy. Doesn't everyone read like this? Yeah, doesn't everyone understand the cosmos? I don't get it. Right? They just know this stuff. Sometimes they might study it, sometimes they just know it. And if we're like, yeah, right on, that's awesome, another 100%, wow, gosh, you didn't even have to try, you did so well. All of a sudden there's a mindset that I'm only as smart as I was born, and remaining smart and gifted means that I do the best or among the best, and I don't even try. Because once I have to try, I'm not gifted anymore. And what happens with the fixed point mindset is all you start to care about is your grade and the outcome and nothing about the process. And the research shows that these kids in college, their learning levels out because now it's all about their grade. It's not about learning anymore. The growth oriented mindset is my brain's a muscle. The more I use it and exercise it, the stronger I am. I love to learn. I love the process. And we know a lot of gifted kids love to learn. We need to make sure they continue loving to learn and not letting their academic experiences take that out of them because they're not being challenged or stimulated. So the whole idea of the growth-oriented mindset is I love the journey. I love learning. And yeah, I did poorly, but I thought I knew it. What did I miss? And then what we're doing as parents is we are emphasizing effort over outcome. I remember when my oldest, for first semester of her freshman year, she came into her academic self, so she has some learning differences, and so school wasn't always as easy for her. And she came into her academic self, and she did really well, and she was really proud of herself. And I just said, wow, you really tried. I've never seen you try so hard. And she said, yeah, look, next semester, she exceeded in being very social. And so her friends were going well, and she wasn't putting in the time, and she came home with her grades, and she said, look what I got. And she wasn't happy with some of her grades that weren't as good as her previous semester. And I said, I was trying to be very mindful and practice what I preach. I'm such a, you can't be a hypocrite. so I said, so? She's like, what do you mean so? I said, so what do you think? She said, well, obviously I'm not happy with my grades. I said, oh, why not? She said, because they're not as good as they were first semester. I said, oh. And I said, well, would you do something different next time? And she said, duh, I'd spend more time like I did the first semester. And I said, that makes sense. And she's staring at me like, and I was just trying to be so purposeful with like, you know the lesson, like you're old enough, you know it, and I could have done the regular parenting thing, which is, well, we told you, instead of being on your phone texting all your friends, you could have been studying. You know better. But what that does is it shuts it down, and then the focus is on grades. When really the focus was on, you could have done better if you tried, and you did it, or maybe you'll learn from it. And it's kind of up to you. And I can't say you can't do that with all kids, but some kids, a lot of our gifted kids, you can. We're trying to make them become autonomous learners, to quote our colleague, the late great George Best. Autonomous learners. Because some of these kids are so autonomous and they love to learn, but we have to be careful with what we say. So have a growth, effort-oriented mindset. Okay, now homework. There's way too many words on this page. These are all just different questions that you need to ask yourself, because some of our kids, the homework is too boring. It's not, it's just repetitive. Some of our kids have learning differences and the homework is too hard, or there's executive functioning issues. However, when did it become our job to go to war on homework? When did that happen? And what do you guys have? We have School Loop. You guys have an online thing, which is really a way for family therapists to get lots of good clients. Do you have an online? Yeah.
We have Parent Portal.
Parent Portal, yeah. So, I guess it makes sense. Sorry who's ever watched this. I'm not taking on anything political here. The bottom line is we are way too involved in our kids' schooling. Way too involved, and it's their work. And I think a lot of times we feel we are supposed to be responsible, and sometimes we feel teachers put that on us. But you can talk to the teacher about that. And if your child is having issues with it, we need to deal with your child and the teacher and talk about it. But it's not yours. Quick story. So when my son was, I don't know, maybe first or second grade, I'd be driving home from work, and it would always be the usual like chaos, madness, screaming and crying on the end of the phone because of something that was going on with our intense sensitive kids. And my wife would say, you know what, he's been whining, complaining, and screaming over his math homework again for another half hour. I can't do this anymore. He's yours, right? So this I became mine like for 3 days in a row. And I started calm because I hadn't been with him all day, so I'm supposed to be calm. And I started calm, and this is too hard, this is too easy, this is boring, this is stupid. And finally I realized, I cannot believe this homework is ruining our evening. And he's like in first or second grade. Like, how did this happen? And I realized, some of my most brilliant parenting moments come in complete exasperation, not with any intention. And I realized, I don't care. I'm in second grade now. So I grabbed it from him and I said, hey bud, you know what? I don't care if you do your homework. Don't do it. And I turned around and I started walking toward the backpack feeling like liberated. I'm done. And all of a sudden, I get like tackled from behind. Dad, please let me do my homework. I have to do my homework. I'm like, why? He said, because I'll miss recess. And I said, and finally I'm like, oh my God, what have I been doing? And so I'm like, here you go. Do it if you want. I'm going to go get out of my work clothes. I took an extra long time. He was done in 15 minutes. And it wasn't like everything became dandy, fine and dandy after that. But the bottom line is I realized, what are we doing? And miss recess then. Like if it's not about a learning issue or it's not about something else, which we needed to check that stuff out, then do whatever you want. Don't do it. Now some of us will say, well, you need to learn your work ethic because homework and those discipline and life skills are what is responsible for your future success. Is that entirely true? I don't know. All I can say is it depends on the situation. Having someone do mindless work day after day after day, is that going to be responsible for college and life success? I don't know. Is it maybe more to talk to your teacher and see what a student to talk to your teacher, you to help co-talk to the teacher if that child, that age needs it, to figure out what's going on so you guys can come up with a plan. But to do it and to have wars, no. remember going to a talk years ago before kids, and this family therapist was married at the time. My wife and I went to see this talk. This seasoned family therapist said to this private school, the only thing that leaves when your kids leave your house is your relationship. So choose if you want it to be about them not doing their homework. It's always stuck with me. I pass that on to you. Okay. Homework. Now, we're winding down. Screens. That's a whole other talk. But the bottom line is we are dealing with something very new that none of us really know how to handle. And to be fair, most of us adults have not figured out how to handle constant screens. It's distracting. It's addicting. It's designed to release our dopamine. Do you remember when you had a chance to turn off the Netflix before the next episode came on? Right? I can't even figure out our remote quick enough to do it. And then I'm like, okay, no, not one more episode. Okay. It's designed to suck us in. Everything on our phone and TV and screens are designed, and they are the people who make them admit it. So we are trying to figure it out. For our kids, social media, for our adolescents, the amount of screen time, it's all an experiment. And what we know is excessive social media and screen time increases depression and anxiety. It also makes our kids less efficient because the normal thing these days is to be doing homework, chatting with a friend, Skyping a video over here, like 3 or 4 things, and music of course going on, which is now like no big deal at all. 3 or 4 things, multitasking. So we have to help our kids manage and be aware and get healthy to the degree that we can, because when they leave our house, they're on their own. So back to controlling, all right, everything's off at 10, your phone's with me. That might be good when you're young, but if you do that with a junior and senior, what are you preparing them? They're leaving. They're not going to be able to regulate. So the bottom line is, it's again to be aware that this is a real thing that happens, and if our kids are starting to tank, you have to look at their screen use as well as part of the whole picture. The whole picture. And then sleep. This is something that we've learned a lot about recently, is that for all of us, this whole thing about, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm taking 5 AP classes, or I'm doing my 5th startup, and I don't have time to sleep. Well, what we know is about people crash. You're going to get depressed, you're going to get anxious, you're going to have an injury, you're not going to be able to think straight, and bad things are going to happen. Period. Ariana Huffington talks about this. She had that mentality, and she was show with the Huffington Post. She said she was working like 20 hours a day, and she collapsed and like hit her head on the corner of her desk, like leveled her, and that was the beginning of her starting to live a healthy life and thrive. Her new business venture to be all about health and wellness in organizations and communities. Because you're just going to crash, and what happens is when our kids are younger, there is more capacity to exist on less sleep than we are now at our age, generally speaking, but we need to talk to them about health. And that if you cram all this into your life, how can we back out health? If you're going to take an extra AP class, let's talk about sleep. How is it going to impact your sleep? Just so they're aware that there's only so much time in the day. Okay, so stress reduction plan. These are all the things that we can help our kids do, or give the kids who have so much potential, right? Their whole lives ahead of them, and we need to focus on what matters, which is health. And there's several things we can do. We can help them learn to identify what the problem is so they can do something about it. We can help them learn to let some things go and avoid stress wherever they can. Like, we do not need to be stress-eating machines. Isn't it amazing when you drop a commitment that was stressing you out? You're like, oh my gosh, why did I not do that 3 months ago? Like, it was like a prison sentence that you had to do this thing. We don't have to do all the things that we do. We can choose it. Manage screens and social media. And these 3 big ones, exercise, sleeping, and eating well, are huge. I can tell you, I didn't think about many of those things. Besides, when you play a sport, you're lucky because you get a lot of exercise just because you have to, so you don't think about it. But the eating and sleeping, those are huge things to learn early. What happens when kids go to college and they don't sleep, they come home with mono, and they miss a semester? That's how a lot of them learn it. Sometimes it works out. I mean, it always works out, but that's just sometimes the way you have to learn it, but wouldn't it be great if you could avoid that? And then have a release for emotional tension. Journaling, yoga, meditation, walking, reading, hiking, biking, swimming, health. Okay, we're winding up now. Your hands are going to explode with wellness. Okay, so some things to consider. Sometimes the best thing we can do is get out of our kids' way. Get out of their way. Listening to them, particularly our teens, often is more important than talking to them. Listen. The best way to stop a conversation with your teen is to start asking them questions about what they're telling you. Showstopper. You know what the best thing we can say to our teens are? Like therapy 101, right? Stereotypic therapy. Let them talk when they want to talk. And guess what? Often it's not going to be when you are at your best. 10 o'clock, finally bedtime. Oh, you want to talk for an hour and a half now about all the stress over the last month that you haven't told me about? We got to settle into it when we get it. Because that's when things usually get quiet late at night and they're able to talk. And nothing is important as our children seeing what we do every single day. Moving it back to us. Permission to fully live your life, parents. Permission. It is helpful to your kids. And guess what? You will like it too. Okay, so here's what we need to do to manage ourselves and to parent with awareness and intention. We need to manage our emotions. We need to regulate our emotions and manage them. Even if we have a really good reason to be upset, we need to try to manage them. We need to ask ourselves what the parenting goal is. Are we focusing on the forest or the tree? Because when you have a goal, you can back out what you're going to do to achieve your goal. Explore options that you have in the scenario that you're facing. We don't have to parent everything in the moment. You can say, you know what? I need to think about that and get back to you. I need to talk to your mom. I need to talk to your dad. I need to talk to grandma. Whomever. I just need a little time. That's showing thoughtfulness, showing frontal lobe, showing restraint. Doesn't have to happen right then. Respond with a behavior that's aligned with your goal, and then assess the situation like you do in your work. Did that work? Or do I need to adjust? Do I need to modify? And if you blew it, go back and apologize. You know what? I overreacted there. Or actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I didn't react there. And I wish I did. I was more concerned about you not getting upset with me in the moment that I didn't do my job. So, what do you want for your children?